What's going on, America? This is Kevin from Kevin's Corner. And come on, y'all. Those people down there in Minneapolis, I know you're mad and upset, but this doesn't help your case. This is exactly what I was worried about when I did the first video, recognizing that the cops were obviously wrong. They killed the man, all of that stuff. I don't think anybody, I haven't heard one position that disagrees with the way the cops did that man. Yet, the response is exactly what I was worried about, because you have people and entities out there that look for these type of tragedies to exploit for their own personal gain. Now, let me tell you what this does for the cause. I watched last night a whole heap of folks out there doing things that had nothing to do with protests. See, a protest only is as good as the message that you bring, the demands that you have, and your method of protesting. When you go beyond a peaceful protest, now you become riots. That's what you become, which degrades your message. It makes people not want to listen to you. You now fall into the category of an angry person without reason and emotional and impulsive, and decide the way I'm going to display my anger is to start tearing up not anything but my own property. I mean, how should I take you seriously? That's like a kid coming up to me and saying, you know what, I can't express to you why little Timmy did something to me. All I can tell you is little Timmy did something and he punched me in my eye. And before I give all the details to you, my response, even though I might say, well, you know what, that was wrong what Timmy did, I'm going to deal with Timmy in a moment. Instead of saying, okay, let me wait until you deal with Timmy, the kid falls out on the floor, runs around, starts knocking stuff off the shelves, and it totally distracts me from what Timmy did to now what you're doing. When people protest, this is what gives protests a bad name, when you encourage that protest to go from peaceful to violent. Now, who am I saying this actual behavior belongs to? I'm not going to put it in the hands of just black people or white people, but the predominant amount of people in that protest were black, which makes me sad because I'm black. And when I see black people respond like that, I'm thinking to myself, this is why I say that we have to be very wise, we have to be educated, we have to be tempered in our response if it doesn't warrant an immediate response like we want. I mean, I guess what they want is them to drag this guy out in the middle of the court and hang him. And see, it would be one thing if these people were protesting and they had no behavior that displayed a riot. They were simply protesting. The cops came up to him, was like, get moving, start pushing him or something. Then it get physical. But when you start burning stuff, breaking windows, throwing stuff at the cop cars. I saw one guy on Fox, he's down there, and all these guys up there throwing up gang signs behind him. That doesn't look like a protest. That makes me say, nah, I can't take you seriously. That makes me see you as someone who just threw a fit. And without reason, without a plan, what happens if I stick a microphone in your face and say, what do you want? What are you going to say? Just justice for Floyd? I mean, what are you going to say? Just wipe away the whole police department, get rid of them? I need a plan. I need you to be able to sensibly display your frustration and anger through your words, not you tearing up the place or me getting video footage of hundreds of people, white and black, but the majority was black, of just looting. What does looting have to do with anything? They're breaking into places. They done robbed all the stuff out of Target. They then burn down the AutoZone. Those are not good looks if you want someone to take you seriously. And because of the sensitivity of the case, it puts the police there in a passive position where they are afraid to stop the rioting, because then it could escalate and more people get hurt. And the first thing gonna happen is y'all now are attacking us because we're black. It's not because we're just breaking into stuff and burning stuff in our own area, ruining our own stuff in our own community. It's because we're black. And we're doing this because we're mad and we want justice. And justice looks like this. Let me go rip a cash register out. Let me go burn down AutoZone, throw things and break the police car windows out. Let me go burn down businesses in my own community. That's what justice looks like to me. And then when the smoke clears, all that stuff is burned down in your own neighborhood. And you get no results from that. Nothing will change as a result of you taking advantage of a crisis, because that's all it is. You're taking advantage of it. And I wish that they would stop. But then you got the media. Like I said when I did my last video, there are people out there that like these type of scenarios for the simple fact they look at it differently than the way it should be looked at, which is this is an injustice to that man. These police officers all were wrong and should be held accountable. But they take this opportunity to say, you know what? This shows the broader spectrum of how much racism is out there and how much black people are constantly being a victim of racism and police brutality. Now, am I saying that there are no cases of that? Am I saying that this case couldn't have been racially motivated? No, but I'm saying before you start tearing up stuff, how about you take a look? How about you settle down for a second, wait and see how this all plays out. If there is no justice, let's just say that they decide, man, forget that. We're not arresting these cops. We're letting them walk. No penalty, prosecution, nothing. I can see saying, let's now get upset, get some signs and stuff and go down there. But before any of that happens, you go on a rant and start tearing up and burning down the city and robbing. That's not a good look. Let's listen to the people who are taking advantage of this as Tucker covers the story.
A while, maybe about an hour ago, just down the street, there was some sort of an incident or an assault. It appeared, and we were told that there was a stabbing and a couple of people were assaulted.
I see.
They called police for help. When police arrived at that time, the crowd started moving that way.
Start moving.
They threw eggs, they threw water bottles. Police in that case responded with flashbangs and a round of tear gas. They did manage to get those victims off into the back of squad cars and left, apparently, or presumably, to go to the hospital. That then dispersed. There hasn't really been any kind of a situation between police and the crowd since then. Behind me now, you can see the AutoZone. I'm sure you saw pictures last night of it up in flames. This is what's left. Obviously burned to the ground along with a couple apartment buildings. There was a Wendy's that burned to the ground last night just behind
your own neighborhood.
I was told 16 structures in all did burn last night. Firefighters responded to 16 structure fires. Over here real quick, we had some looting in the area, a lot of looting actually, and you can see that the windows are boarded up.
Now, with that being said, let's get the take
any of the coverage
that the
from
media
Minneapolis
has
today about what happened last night. You know perfectly well that what's happening on the streets there, no matter what it may look like, is actually a quest for justice. It's a long overdue search for answers by legitimately frustrated protesters who, if we're going to be honest about it, have been oppressed for so long they can no longer stand idle. What you're seeing in Minneapolis is democracy in its purest form. Effectively, it's a political rally. Here was a representative seen last night.
That looks to me like a guy robbing the cash register. Looters.
Now, wait a second, you may be thinking. That didn't look like a political rally.
No, it didn't.
Those people look like looters. They were smashing cash registers with hammers to steal other people's money. Well, yes, technically they were doing that. And yes, as a factual matter, they were smashing the cash registers because they had already stolen everything else in the store. So no, it doesn't look like conventional political activism. But before you...
Now, before I let Tucker finish this is why I'm mad about it. Because I have a high expectation for all citizens. But when it comes down to black folks, when you have liberals, black, white, or whatever, that have an agenda to exploit situations like this, now you embarrass us. Now you enable us and encourage negative behavior. Now, with you making excuses for this type of behavior, what you do is you give encouragement to people to go out there, do this type of stuff in the name of protest, only to embarrass themselves and us as a people and get no results. And it makes us look like we are a bunch of people who get angry when we don't get our way immediately and start tearing up stuff that have nothing to do with the initial situation. And now you're going to hear these people on cable news kind of give this the green light and spin it for an agenda. And this is the biggest problem with this push for all of this racism in our society. They're not doing it with the proper motive. They're not saying, let's really deal with racism. They're saying, let's use racism as a wedge to divide people across the United States. And if your motive is wrong, now what you're doing is you're taking advantage of black people and other minorities. Why do I say that? Because when you, as a black person or a minority, don't recognize that people are using the most vulnerable and sensitive part of your background, your people, your heritage, your culture, whatever, the sore spot, to push you around on the chessboard, you become vulnerable. You don't realize you're being manipulated. And now your anger towards a sensitive topic has made you be weak and vulnerable and able to be used by people who have ill motives. Therefore, they're relying on you not to respond practically, logically, sensibly, none of that stuff. They're relying on you to go into an emotional rant, be impulsive, and don't get any real results, but you just give a display of anger and tearing up stuff, and it leads to nothing. Let's listen to the rest of this.
It could have been far worse. It's not like they were doing something immoral, like protesting Gretchen Whitmer's coronavirus lockdowns in Michigan. That would have been a different story.
True.
Black people's right to protest is secondary to white people's right to be an armed protest with long guns, terrifying.
Now, here we go. This is exactly what I'm talking about. They bring out this black commentator who her job, of course, Joy Reid, is to push the race narrative and misplace the blame and try to make it seem like every protest was the same, or black people aren't treated like white people when they protest. And she's not recognizing the difference in the protests. See, that's what she's doing. First things first. They've been whining about all these masks not being on for the other protesters. The white protesters in Michigan, they're not wearing masks. They're not, nothing mentioned about all the black people I saw running around with no mask. Okay, so all of that becomes secondary when it comes out of, ooh, we could push race in this one. Forget about all that stuff, because we weren't really serious about the mask issue anyway. I mean, we were just using all of that to increase the rhetoric about the people in Michigan, okay? We were pointing out everything that we could, even though it had nothing to do with anything. Look, they got guns, they're not wearing their masks. Now you got folks tearing up stuff, burning stuff. One person gets shot and killed, somebody else got stabbed. A lot of them aren't wearing masks, and nothing about the social distancing, nothing about the mask, nothing about they should all be on the lockdown. Nothing about that. Nothing about your rights to protest should take secondary to the national lockdown. None of that. So now this woman is saying that they are hindering black people's ability to protest, but yet in Michigan, there was nothing. No pushback from the police without recognizing the difference. Now, I'm not a genius, but I saw both footage from Michigan and also from last night and today. It looked totally different. If I'm a police officer and I'm standing there and I see people standing on Capitol Hill with their guns pointed at the ground around their neck and it's holstered, and they're not branding it, they're not threatening, yelling, chasing folks, burning down stuff, flipping over cars, throwing stuff at the police, there's no reason to engage with them. When I see people storming the police station, throwing stuff at the police, breaking out windows, tearing up stuff, burning stuff, people getting shot, there is a reason to deal with them. So Joy Reid is making it seem like all these people were standing there just like those same people in Michigan, peacefully with bullhorns, saying nice things and saying, all right, this is messed up. We need to encourage the people to all stick together. She's making it seem like they were doing that. And all of a sudden the police should start firing tear gas at them. See, that's what she's doing. Now, what is she really doing? Messing with your emotions. That's what she's really doing. She is using this crisis to manipulate people and to paint a false narrative that the police did something different to the white folks up in Michigan, not recognizing the different behavior that was displayed in Michigan, versus the black people down there in Minneapolis that she is saying was just protesting, not rioting, protesting. Let's listen to some more of this garbage.
This is how the protest of Floyd's death ended up.
Protest.
Police in riot gear, flooding the streets with tear gas and shooting rubber bullets into the crowd.
Interesting.
Another example of how this pandemic has been a kind of black light, exposing all the inequalities in American life. That's the meme that's going around right now with the cops with the black kid on the ground saying hello to the white guy in camo with the AK-47 and the mask who was protesting in Michigan. That when it's white people with guns and they're out and they're angry and their faces with cops.
Now you wonder why we say the fake news is the enemy of the people. Do you hear what they're saying and doing? Do you see what they're saying? They are taking advantage of their raggedy audience, their ignorant audience, their audience that's mad for nothing, all the victims that feel like, man, we got all this injustice going around. This is the stuff that causes and encourages the riots. This is the stuff that further divides the police from the people. This is the stuff that further divides the nation. This is the stuff that further pushes racism when they don't accurately report why the police responded differently in Michigan than what they are responding in Minneapolis. That's why we say they're the enemy of the people, because with this type of rhetoric, you can encourage some ignorant person to look at that improperly without all the facts and get mad and say, well, you know what? I'm going to bash a white man in his head tonight. You know, you are setting people up for failure. This right here, right? I'm telling y'all, it makes me so mad, because what all of these people are doing, black, white, and otherwise on these networks, are using our past history, hurts, pains, all of that stuff to manipulate us for an agenda. They're using us. And when you respond emotionally, impulsively, and with anger and violence, all of that stuff, that right there is what they want. They like the camera on you, like, look at them. They're really upset. They're tearing up everything. And if I'm a reasonable person and I'm watching that and I'm going, what do you want us to do after you get finished burning down the whole neighborhood? After you get finished tearing up stuff, this man right now, first of all, those cops are going to get the business. However, instead of saying, let's wait until they get the business, they decide, well, we're going to assume they're not going to get the business and tear up and use this as a way to loot and rob, which takes away totally from the message and the protest. Let's listen to the rest of this garbage.
Every civil.
It's as if some people are accorded the rights of citizenship and other folks are just expected to be obedient. These folks ended up in the state capitol, Craig, with automatic weapons, and they were treated with kid gloves.
Oh.
Now, Tucker, I know he gonna finish it out for us, but did you hear that, black guy? That guy right there on CNN, you know, pushing a narrative that these guys up on the Capitol in Michigan was treated with kid gloves and they had weapons and they were exercising their First Amendment right. Just like the people that if they would have been peaceful down there up there in Minneapolis, if they would have been peacefully protesting, the cops wouldn't have bothered them either. But when you go from, I'm standing here with my weapon and I'm just splouting out the message, to now we're going to become violent and start hurling things at the cops, breaking out windows, that man right there isn't giving his audience that bit of information. I think that's important to make a distinction between the two crowds. But he don't want that distinction made. He want it to be based on appearance. You got guys standing there peacefully with guns protesting versus black people without guns, but they're violently protesting. They're rioting. See, that's accurate. And that would also show you why the cops are dealing with this crowd differently than that crowd. But no, he leaves that out because he's a race baiter and he's taking advantage of manipulating black people. Let's continue.
See, it's not all like those fascists in Michigan.
Right.
In Minneapolis, there's a reason people doing it. A legitimate reason. Even the cash register smashers.
Yeah.
They were civilly smashing the cash registers, so relax. And by the way, the cash registers deserved it anyway.
That's right.
As Joy Reid suggested on MSNBC, they're probably European cash registers.
Probably.
And therefore complicit in oppression.
Yeah.
Europeans came to this country to get away from being subjects of the kings in Europe. But what they did was they created for themselves sort of a kingdom, every man a king. But the subjects are black people, these armed white men who can get armed up and walk into a state capitol, and that's okay. And the police are benign. They don't even act afraid. But let black people show up and protest the death of an innocent black man, and suddenly, you know what? We need tear gas. We got to go full force. Charlottesville, the same.
Now, did you hear that? Did you hear her just manipulate the whole audience? Did you hear her try to gaslight us as if we're not watching the video footage of what's going on? Huh? That right there is why she shouldn't even be on the air. I'm telling you right now, when you are a news station that is a propaganda station that is encouraging certain types of behavior that can result in people getting hurt, then you shouldn't even be on the air. Now, I'm not about censorship or anything like that, but if you got that grave responsibility to report the news or give a commentary, and what you're doing is setting them up for failure, your station, not, I'm not saying we need to go in and regulate them, but whoever you work for should be watching this and saying, Joy, you're not giving that accurately. You do realize that the protesters in Michigan were not throwing stuff at the police, burning stuff. Police will read their body language. If I'm a cop and I'm in Michigan and I see all these guys' weapons just holstered or around their body, pointed at the ground as they stand still without pointing the weapon at me or anybody else, and I see the crowd is calm, then I should be able to deduce that I can relax unless that changes. Then I go down here and I see people throwing things, getting closer and closer to us as they're throwing things, breaking out car windows, burning stuff up. Then I'm reading that crowd's body language, which makes me respond differently. And the sad part about it, Joy being a black person should not excuse that behavior coming from other black people, because she should recognize that that gets us nowhere. That type of behavior only makes us look bad. So therefore, if the protest is not wise, well thought out, with some meaning, some purpose, and also an end result, just in case the media shows up and says, what do y'all want to happen? You don't want to be standing there going, I don't know. I want justice for Floyd, and I want this stuff to stop. You better have some type of practical response, something. But that right there is not a good response. Tearing up stuff before any results come back, that's not a good look. It's not. I don't care how much they try to spin it. I don't care how much they try to say, well, they were mad and they want justice. Let me tell you, I can understand his family or somebody like that just going completely buck wild and crazy. But these people who are flipping out down there, white and black, they didn't know him personally. I know they might feel that this is a way for us to show the man that we upset and we ain't gonna take it. There are ways to do that without saying, let me tear up Walmart and all these, and rob and steal and hurt people and say, well, what we just did was justified by what these cops just did. What you just did is said, you know what? We're gonna go with vigilante justice, and we're going to tear up stuff and make black folks look bad for the most part. And then when the police step to us, really peacefully, because if it wasn't for those police saying, man, we better lay low, let these people just act out, tear up stuff, do whatever they got to do, because we already got a situation that the media is just pushing out there and trying to create more tension. If it wasn't from that, if they didn't have that tension, keeping them passive, they would be engaging with these people on a whole different level. You don't sit back and just let folks burn stuff. Some people even got killed, from what I'm hearing, and tear up stuff without you dealing with them viciously if need be. So Joy Reid and the rest of you listen to, they're going to leave that bit of information out. They want us to think these people were out there with candles going, we shall overcome. Brrr. Oh my God, they're shooting at us and we ain't even do nothing. See, that right there is manipulation, and that is why they're the enemy of the people. Let's see what she got to say as we close this out.
They're there to protect the people who are marching as neo-Nazis, not to protect the black people.
So who watches Joy Reid, you may be wondering?
I don't know. Hopefully no one.
Well, it turns out the people who run Minneapolis apparently watch Joy Reid.
Why?
As their city crumbled around them, local leaders huddled in deliberation.
Okay.
They emerged with a plan. They declared that racism is, quote, a national emergency. CNN immediately trumpeted the development as if it were breaking news.
Okay.
Meanwhile, mobs in downtown Minneapolis kept looting, stores kept burning. Normal people of all colors huddled indoors, terrified. No one bothered to explain how any of this was connected. How exactly does racism have anything to do with looting ATM machines or stealing PlayStations from Target? It's confusing.
It is.
What we do know is that riots are now acceptable because racism is a national emergency. That's the new standard.
Okay.
Okay, So now that we're in a state of national emergency, the question is, what is not acceptable? What's not okay? Anything? Here's what some of the, quote, protesters were chanting last night in Minneapolis.
Well, let's listen. Shoot the white folks. Shoot the white folks.
So you're not going to see that clip on CNN.
No.
How come?
Wonder
it's
why.
Simple. Facts like this, and there are a lot of them, challenge the carefully constructed storyline that our leaders richly profit from. Therefore, those facts must be suppressed. For example, practically every day we're told that white cops are a mortal threat to black men, and some are, obviously. It's what started this whole thing. A black man was killed by the police.
Right.
It's awful. But what are the national numbers on this?
Yeah,
well, actually, we know the answer. A study from last year found that white police officers were less likely to shoot and kill non-white suspects than non-white police officers were.
Interesting.
In any given year, police kill more white suspects, armed and unarmed, than black suspects.
Right.
And that's a fact, by the way. It's not political propaganda. It's provably true.
Right.
Yet no one on television will ever say that because that fact threatens the scams they're working.
There you go.
Eddie Glaude Jr. might be the living embodiment of this phenomenon.
This dude.
If you've ever wondered whether yelling racist at the people you want things from is an effective business plan, Eddie Glaude is living proof that indeed it is.
Yes.
By regularly screaming racist, Glaude has been able to ride a mediocre academic career all the way to an endowed professorship at Princeton.
Really?
It's a job with such high pay and so few actual requirements that Glaude can dress like a British lord and spend much of his day shuttling by limo between cable news hits. Talk about a sweet gig.
Wow.
As long as Eddie Glaude continues to denounce people as racist, the right people, he can probably keep that job forever.
Exactly.
So naturally, Eddie Glaude has no interest in explaining how exactly racism makes people loot Target.
Wonderful.
It just does, okay? And if you disagree with that premise, you're a racist yourself, so shut up.
Yeah.
As Glaude told viewers on MSNBC, it's all about the, quote, context.
Let's see.
As human beings' natural inclination when they feel wrong, when they feel put upon, when they're living under oppressed conditions, is to lash out. And this is the history of the modern West. It's the history of the world in some ways. And so part of what we have to do is try to understand the context that led to what happened.
Oh, the context.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's Eddie's response. This is his interpretation of why these people are lashing out. Now, you have to understand this. You take, for example, Beijing, all those people that are in Hong Kong, who this is an oppression against all of those people, almost like an invasion of the Chinese government coming in and saying, we're going to deal with all of y'all and suppress you all, change the way your government responds. Of course, they're all affected and a victim, so they're pushing back. This case, this man was a victim, which is a messed up situation because I'm gonna be honest, as a black person, you never want to see another black person get treated like that, especially with the history behind racism and stuff like that. You almost feel like you hurt one black person, you hurt us all. But the response shouldn't be as if we were all attacked at the same time, so that we should go out as a group, meaning all black people, and tear up stuff. We should evaluate his situation, how they respond to these cops, see the outcome, and then respond. We can throw out some ideas, we can vocalize our opinion, but we must remain civil, because if we encourage people to start responding like this at any civil unrest, what that would encourage also is people like Eddie to profit off of it. It will also encourage people like all those looters, because in the past, you would find people traveling from states when they find out something like this happened, because they know the reaction of the black crowd, most of them, looting, and they're saying, let's go down there and get in on that. They're not going down there because they care about the situation and they want to see justice. They're saying, how can we profit off of this? Because we know the police are going to be hypersensitive. We know the news are going to be accommodating and excuse our behavior. So let's go down there and enjoy ourselves and profit off of this, which is not doing black people any good. That's why this guy, Eddie, is a bum. Joy Reid is a bum. MSNBC, CNN, we already know what they about. Now, I wish they would stop taking advantage of black people's vulnerabilities and really deal with these issues case by case and ensure that justice is brought to these cops. But justice doesn't mean tear up your own neighborhood and steal and rob and hurt folks and burn down stuff that make you feel a little bit better about the situation. You've been listening to Kevin and Kevin's Corner, y'all. I'm sorry. I had to go in on them like that, making sense out of nonsense. And then you got Tucker who sees it, calls it out, and you're going to see some black people like Tucker doesn't understand because he's not part of the struggle. He's a white man and he don't know. And I'm going, well, just because you're white, black, or otherwise, and you're able to see what's going on with this and how they're taking advantage of us. See, maybe if you can't take it from Tucker, you could take it from me. Trust me, I am black, pro-black, love my people. And if stuff isn't handled properly, I would be the first to say, let's go and peacefully protest, okay? But I'm not going to encourage this type of behavior and give my people an excuse to act a fool. Now, you've been listening to Kevin and Kevin's Corner. Don't forget, check me out every Wednesday night, 7:30, live in Kevin's Corner on Facebook, on YouTube, and my radio blog talk show. Hit like, share, subscribe, and the notification button. And make sure you're still receiving notifications. Is set to all, and you are still subscribed. If you want to donate to Kevin and Kevin's Corner, feel free. There's a link below this video to do that. And then finally, what else? Oh, yeah, check out Extreme Tees, my sponsor. Put Kevin in a promo code. You'll get a 20% discount. The link's below. God bless. See you next time in Kevin's Corner.